Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening around the world. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Blackjack. Today, as always, I'll be doing a deck tech from the comment section for you guys. If you're interested in having me put a deck together for you or help you tweak a list you're trying to work on, I'm looking for any of the 5 metrics in the comment section. A bracket, a budget, a theme, a commander, and any pet cards you might have. Today, we have a request from the user dralamasu asking for Golbez Crystal Collector, budget between $75 and $100. So extremely budget friendly. Gonna be playing around a bracket 2 level. This is Golbez Demir, a blue and a black for a 1/4. Whenever an artifact you control enters Surveil 1, which means look at the top card of your library, you can either keep it there or put it in your graveyard. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 4 or more artifacts, return target creature from your graveyard to your hand. And if you control 8 or more artifacts, each opponent loses life equal to that card's power. So this deck is all about artifacts, and when you're working with a budget, you have to get creative with your threats. So when I was thinking about how does Golbez actually win the game at a $100 budget, what made sense to me was artifacts that are big, artifacts that are sticky, and artifacts that can be made cheaper. So if we look at a card like Ancient Stone Idol, it says it's a 10 mana 12/12 with flash. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each attacking creature. Trample, when it dies, create a 6/12 artifact with trample. We look at another big creature like Metalwork Colossus. It is a 10/10 for 11 mana that says it costs X less to cast, where X is the total converted mana cost of non-creature artifacts you control. Sack 2 artifacts, return it from your graveyard to your hand. Things like Phyrexian Triniform. When it dies, you still get 3/3/3 golems, otherwise it's a 9/9 for 9. Things like Triplicate Titan, a 9/9 for 9 that when it dies, it makes 3 different 3/3s. And then the OG of this, granted this is a disgusting printing, but it was for a good cause. Worm Coil Engine, when it is a 6/6, when it dies, it makes a 3/3 lifelink and a 3/3 death touch. Otherwise, it also has lifelink and death touch. So, to me, what spoke to me here was basically you're going to play a bunch of smaller costed artifacts or make your artifacts cheaper, have artifacts that are sticky, artifacts that are on the battlefield for a while after you cast them, things that do things, not just one-off like sorcery or instant effects. That way, the more artifacts you play, the more surveils you get, and the stickier your stuff is, in the long term, the cheaper your big creatures are going to cost, because they're all usually reduced in some form by the amount of creatures you have or the amount of artifacts you have. In addition to that, you get to buy these back from the graveyard if you have 4 or more artifacts. So you're completely happy with surveilling these giant creatures into your graveyard early game. And then in the mid to late game, you're going to be triggering Golbez to bring them back to your hand. And then ideally, if you have the 8 or more mark, you're going to be donking your opponents for, 12 life, 10 life, 9 life. That's going to be your major win con here. So as we're working our way to things like Metalwork and Ancient Stone Idol, as we're surveilling those into the graveyard early game, we're going to be deploying threats like Baleful Strix for card draw and defense. Emery can allow you to buy stuff back out of the graveyard. Ethereum Sculptor, Foundry Inspector, Joyous Familiar all make our artifacts cheaper, and they're artifacts that trigger on the way in. Kappa Cannoneer, a card that can just win the game on its own. It's going to get really big and it's going to be unblockable. Leaden Mirror for a little bit of mana, plus it triggers Golbez. Matoya, since we're going to be ideally surveilling every turn of the game, we're going to get some advantage out of that and draw a card. Metalwork as a win con. Milliken to make some mana and be sticky and be an artifact. Mearshell Crab is a cool one. You can essentially channel this by discarding it to counter a spell or ability unless its controller pays 3, so it's a mana leak. It's a mana leak that's an artifact that you can deploy later in the game. Plus, you can counter something super early, and then if you have 4 more artifacts with your commander, you can buy it back to your hand. So it's a counter spell that you can actually buy back to your hand. I thought that was super interesting. Mirror Battlesphere, not necessarily going to get cheaper in any way, but it can be a win condition, and it creates a ton of artifacts on its own. Mirror Retriever to buy stuff back. Noxious Gearhulk can destroy a creature. So again, not every point of the game you're going to be interested in getting a 9/9. Sometimes you're going to want some blockers with Mirror Battlesphere. Sometimes you're going to want a Noxious Gearhulk to deal with a problem creature. Sometimes you're going to want to copy somebody else's really expensive card that's cool with Phyrexian Metamorph. Ornithopter of Paradise for mana generation. Triniform we talked about. Ruthless Technomancer. So, of course I get the hiccups while recording. This is ridiculous. Ruthless Technomancer, 4 mana. When it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice another creature you control. If you do, create a number of treasures equal to that creature's power. And then you can pay mana to sacrifice X artifacts to return a creature with power X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. So, in essence, this is almost a different form of your commander. You can essentially like cycle big creatures by sacrificing them to make a shitload of treasures, and then you can invest those treasures back to getting creatures, either the same or different creatures from your graveyard to the battlefield. So you get to kind of cycle through and be picky and choosy about which creatures you're getting back. Psy Master Thopterus to make Thopters for us. Scrap Trawler to buy stuff back. Silver Mirror to make mana. Mechanist, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, create a clue token. So anytime that we're casting anything, we're making clues, which is triggering our commander and allowing us to surveil. Triplicate and Wormcoil we talked about. Sorceries, there's only 2 here. Feed the Swarm in case there's something that we can't deal with. Usually things like enchantments are hard for blue and black decks to handle. Thoughtcast for a little bit of card draw. Instance. Dark Ritual, I've been adding this to pretty much every black deck I've been playing. Just a one-off effect of adding more mana. Desynchronization is a good one-sided board wipe. Most of your stuff is historic, so bouncing all non-historics can be great. Scour for scrap lets you search your library for an artifact, as well as buying one back from your graveyard to the battlefield, or from your graveyard to your hand. So it does a little bit of everything. There's one particular artifact in this deck that's much more expensive than everything else here, and is much better than everything else here, and it's probably what you're going to be searching for. Thirst for Knowledge for card draw. Artifacts. So if we look at the mana ramp, we had Milliken, Leaden, and Silver Mirror. That's 3. We also have Ornithopter of Paradise is 4. Arcane Signet 5. We also have Dimir Signet 6. Felwar Stone 7. Liquid Metal Torque 8. Mind Stone 9. Soul Rain 10. Talisman 11. Thought Vessel 12. So it's not necessarily about hitting a certain amount of ramp in this deck, because your commander is only 2 mana. It's more about ramp is better in this deck than most, because not only does it get you closer to casting your better spells, but it also triggers your commander both for the surveil part and counts towards the 4 and then 8 mark for his other abilities. Cloud Key to make your stuff cheaper. Collector's Vault, it's ways to continually make treasures or continually make artifacts over the course of the game, and it lets you sift through the high-costed stuff. Cranial Plating to buff up a creature. Crystal Skull can allow you to play stuff from the top. Demonic Junker as another piece of removal. Encroaching Mycosith, non-land permanents you control are artifacts in addition to their other types. So anytime you have something enter that's not a land, it is going to trigger Golbez. Obviously that's good. Inspiring Statuary to give your artifacts improvise, or your non-artifact spells. Liquid Metal Torque we talked about. Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots are both here. Manifold Key. Untapping an artifact can be good. You know, maybe untapping something like Repurposing Bay or Retrofitter Foundry or Mystic Forge and allowing you to continue going with those can be great. But in addition to that, The most important part of it is making your creatures unblockable. Giving one of your 9/9s or 10/10s unblockable and actually ending the game is going to be a great win condition. Mystic Forge to cast stuff from the top. Prize Statue, we're happy when it enters, we're happy when it leaves. Repurposing Bay to trade stuff up. It's essentially Birthing Pod for artifacts. Retrofitter Foundry to upgrade our artifacts over time. Sensei's Divining Top, I would say, is far and away the best card in this deck. It is $30. It is a third of the budget, but that is for good reason. It can draw cards, it can combo, it can help you sift through the top. It does a lot of things in conjunction with the rest of your deck. So just like we talked about before in a previous video, just to show you guys, if you look up your commander on EDH Rec and you look for combos, it will actually show you all the combos that are available to you. So if we look at things like Sensei's Top, it is an integral piece to many of the combos we have in this deck. So if we pair it alongside something like Ethereum Sculptor and Mystic Forge, you can get essentially infinite card draw, near infinite storm, infinite draw triggers. You can do this alongside any of your cost reducers. So Sensei's Divining Top is essentially the main piece to actually allowing you to combo off and actually win the game and end the game. So if your 9/9s and your 10/10s and your 12/12s are getting blocked or swords to plowshares and it feels like you just can't cross the finish line, feel free to activate a combo with Sensei's Top and be able to trigger the second and third part of your commander over and over, and that will allow you to also win the game. So whenever you're searching for an artifact, more often than not, this is going to be the one you're going to want to get. Swiftfoot Boots, ever flowing well, it allows you to mill and then draw. Eventually it will flip, and it can, whenever you cast a permanent spell using mana produced by it, up to one other permanent becomes a copy of that spell. So you can have your Silver Mirror for 2 mana, 1/1 that adds a blue. Later in the game, you don't need that blue mana. You can turn that into a Wormcoil Engine when you cast the Wormcoil Engine. Trading Post, it allows you to do a bevy of things, essentially trading your cards in for other cards or making tokens, buying stuff back. Transmutation Font is another way for you to search up Sensei's Top. You get to make your choice of a blood, a clue, or a food token, and then if you sack 3 tokens with different names, you can search your library for a card, put it on the battlefield. So you could go get your top, or if we're in the middle of the late game, you know, you can sack this and go get one of your giant 10/10s and actually start trying to end the game. Earthos Research Craft, it will draw you cards when you cast artifacts, and it will get bigger based on the amount of artifacts you control. World Walker Helm, if you would create one or more artifacts, instead create that many plus an additional map. So if you create a token, it essentially makes a map in addition to that, and then you can tap this to create a token that's a copy of an artifact token you control. So a lot of tokens on this card, but the main point of this is, again, a sticky artifact. On the way in, it triggers our commander, and then over the course of the game, it's going to generate value by creating a shitload of tokens and continuing to trigger your commander's first, second, and third ability. Enchantments, efficient construction to make more tokens. Enhanced surveillance for better surveillance on our commander. Propaganda, a good and cheap way to buy us a little bit of time. Thopter Spy Network as a way to draw cards every time we're dealing damage and creating us artifacts at the same time. 36 lands here, nothing of note. I think the mana base was around $5 when I put it together. It's important that we understand this deck it's going to be good, to be honest. At bracket 2, I think you're going to have a good time. Under $100, this is pretty awesome, and there are a lot of very easy ways for you to upgrade this over time. So if you end up really enjoying this play pattern and really enjoying this style over time, obviously if you look at things like EDH Rec, It's extremely easy to see, Planetarium of Wan Shi Tong could be awesome. Just kind of quickly scrolling through. I don't want it to be too jarring for you guys, but Bolus's Citadel, the One Ring, fast mana. There's tons of ways for you to upgrade this deck. Urza would be insane here. And it's just things that, unfortunately, we couldn't get in with our budget. But the cool thing about building a low budget deck is you learn to like it and you learn to work with it when it's at its lowest potential. And if you like it and you upgrade it over time, then the more you play with it and the better it gets, and the better of a player you are with it, it's much more satisfying of a journey to do something like this than to just build a bracket 3 or 4 deck online and just immediately start playing it. So I hope you enjoy it. Let me know how it plays out. And as always, Godspeed.